process.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them, because the people know the truth.
You know, it's one of those subjects that people don't really like to talk about. It's uncomfortable. I think for a lot of different reasons. I think it's uncomfortable for the soldier.
Your mind starts to think, and that's whenever they hit their lows. So, you know, if they're around people, a lot of times it keeps their mind occupied.
The biggest thing I've seen that does the worst damage is when I've had a lot of groups of soldiers say, they get mad and they say, I'm going dark.
All right, so I want to move on to another hot topic, and that is gun control. Okay. So, you know, sadly, our Second Amendment seems to be under attack by Democrats across the country. What is your position on gun control and these red flag laws or order for extreme risk protection?
Well, okay, so our Second Amendment was written, it is saying that this is liberty provided by God.
We're going to be discussing online scams today. You know, we're inundated with scams, identity theft, people trying to steal your hard-earned money. Today, Live for Liberty is partnered with Fireball Approved.
I just want to do something different with y'all today. I want to kind of get real with you about this.
Thanks for watching Live for Liberty. As always, I'm Live for Liberty. God bless America, God bless you, and Patriot all, my friends. Thank you for supporting Live for Liberty. Peace out, Patriot all, my friends.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing tonight? Shane, Stacy, how are you? Debbie, Marco, Valerie, Roger, Bonnie, Jan, nice to see you guys. So welcome to Live for Liberty. Thanks for joining me. I figured I'd do a new intro every week for y'all to watch. It's better than being quiet on my end while I share to a bunch of groups and pages. So it's snowing outside. We're supposed to get like 5 to 8 inches up here. I'm not ready. The struggle is real. If you live down south, do not comment about how warm it is over there because I'm freezing over here. So, all right. So I said I was going to take a step back from doing shows about politics for a few weeks. And this is because honestly, I'm kind of tired and I need a little bit of a break. And it seems every day we wake up to more and more corruption. And in order to save my sanity, I had to take a step back from politics for just a bit. But I love y'all so much, and I love talking to you and connecting with you guys and addressing your comments. I didn't want to stop the show altogether. But don't worry, politics and important issues will be back in a few weeks. So I decided to give back to the community and use this platform to help other patriots for the next few weeks, because this is what it's all about, right? We're one big happy family. Sometimes we don't get along. But we need to get in the mindset of rising above and lifting each other up. It's so important. Before we get started, I want to talk to you about my national organization, Daughters of Liberty. We're going fast and strong and organizing in many states across the country. So if you are a strong patriot woman, join us. You can find Daughters of Liberty at daughtersofliberty.net and on Facebook at Daughters of Liberty with a little dash and then DOL, doll. And you can join through the group page, and it is DOL, DOL members page. So tonight I'll be sharing some amazing patriot organizations by some amazing patriots. And I hope you watch and listen to what they have to say. They do great things in our patriot movement and to help our cause tremendously. So tonight we'll have Hal Shurtleff. He's founder of Camp Constitution. We'll also have on Dustin Amundson with Restore the Intent, and Paul Engles from Constitution Study. All about the Constitution tonight, my people. So very important. So throughout the show, I want to do some short ads for Patriot businesses because it's time we support each other in that way. If you own your own business, call me, text me, shoot me a message and let me know, and I'll do a plug for you too. So this is something I will keep on going with throughout all of my shows from now on, is just helping Patriots in business because we should support each other. So with that being said, if you live in West Virginia and looking to customize your car or truck, head over to Raymond's Auto and Custom at 465 Prosperity Road in Berkeley, West Virginia. They handle maintenance, performance, or maybe you just want to change the appeal of your ride. They can be reached at 681-222-4910, and they are run by Patriots. So at this time, I'd like to bring on Hal. He has been waiting very patiently. Let's go ahead and get you on here, Hal. How are you?
Well, very well, thank you.
Good, good. Is it snowing where you are too?
It will be in a little while. But of course, we're supposed to be in this global warming era, a climate change era. I don't know, it's snow in November. That's unusual this early in November. It happens, but it's unusual.
You know, they say when it snows before Thanksgiving, we're in for like a really rough winter. So I'm hoping that that's not the case. But you are all over the place, my friend, and doing great things. Every time there's an event and I go, you are there. You've got all your stuff set up. Tell us a little bit about Camp Constitution and what got you motivated to do what you do.
Well, Camp Constitution is a charitable trust, and we started it in the actual December of 2008 when it was conceived. We held our first family camp in Ringe, New Hampshire at the Toanippie Retreat Center. And initially it was just going to be a camp that was actually taking their place of a national program that stopped doing it. So we in the Northeast group said, hey, we're going to keep this going. And then as time went on, we had a need, we had classes, and we had a need for using some things that had been out of print. So one of our supporters said, look, Hal, we'll cover the cost of putting, so we now have a publishing arm. We publish books, reprints. We're actually going to be putting back in print the 1828 Catechism on the Constitution. We've got things like Republics and Democracies, an essay by Robert Welch. Not Yours to Give, the famous free market classic. We put back in print an 1810 book written by Noah Webster, refuting climate change, believe it or not. He didn't call it climate change, and many other things. We started a radio show about 4 years ago. A friend up in northern Maine liked, I was a frequent guest on one of the shows on the station, WBCQ The Planet, and she offered me time on the show, so we do that. We have a YouTube channel. We testify at hearings on different issues. One of our major things is stopping an Article 5 convention, which we think will end up rewriting the Constitution, restructuring it. We also have a speakers bureau on, we have people on various topics, and we have something called the Sam Blumenfeld Archives, which is something that's free to the public. You go to our website, there's a little drop down there, and Sam was a good friend of mine, a dear friend. We inherited his library, his papers. He was one of the pioneers in the homeschool movement. He learned about the problems in public schools or government schools and the look-say method of reading that was churning out people who couldn't read or functionally illiterate. So he wrote about 15 books, made hundreds of speeches, wrote newsletters, correspondence with world leaders, and all of that is up on the website. People can teach themselves how to read. They can teach their children. A lot of adults who are functionally illiterate can go to our website and learn the basics, all free. We also have how to write cursive. That's something that's sort of a lost art today, and it's not that difficult to do. I was a victim of block printing when I went to the government schools back in the 60s and 70s. So that's a free resource. So just go to our website, campconstitution.net. I think you can see I put a little sign in the back here. I wish this was a nice studio. It's actually my bedroom, a little modified version. But one of these days we'll have a nice little, probably a little studio to do these things.
You're fine. I'm just fine.
So anyway, yeah, our summer camp is it's a family camp, and of course, when you say a summer camp, some people think of little children, some people think of camping in the woods with a tent. So all kinds of people have different thoughts of camp, but it's a very the grounds are people stay in cabins. A few of them have air conditioning, so it's not roughing it, but we are in the woods. We do hiking. We do a little land navigation. We take optional field trips, a hike up Mount Greylock and the Berkshires. We're surrounded by beautiful forest and hills, but we have classes during the day. We have five classes a day, 3 in the morning and 2 in the evening. And we have what I say some of the top people in their fields speaking on different subjects. One of the topics we cover is this notion of man-made climate change, and we have 2 of, I would say, the world's top instructors on that subject, Professor Willie Soon, and we have Lord Christopher Monckton from the United Kingdom. And he came all the way from the United Kingdom to spend a week. He didn't charge us a penny. We just had to cover his airline expenses, which one of our supporters did. And we videotape all of our classes, so you can go to our YouTube channel and you could see year by year just about every class we have. So we do a lot with the Constitution and threats to the Constitution, and then we have some some workshops that we teach and present. This year we had Dr. Duke Pesta, who's one of the top experts on Common Core. He gave a class on the culture and why we are losing the culture war and how to reclaim the culture. And we have whole families, and in some cases the families, there might be an infant, there might be a toddler, there'd be teenagers. In some cases, the teenagers will stay in the cabin with boys or girls, and the younger members of the family stay with mom. Dad might be a counselor, or the whole family stays in a cabin. And we have the prices, we have really good prices. I think we're probably about 50% lower than most week-long camps. We pretty much charge what the camp that we lease charges us. And there are a lot of families who say, look, I've got 4 or 5 children. My wife and I, that's a lot of money. I say, pay what you can, put in what you can afford. We'll cover the balance. And this will be next year will be our 11th camp. In 11 years, in 10 years, we've never had to turn away a worthy camper or family for lack of funds, thanks to our supporters.
It's fantastic. It's truly fantastic. One of the other things that I know you're working on is about the flag.
Oh, yes.
Talk to us about that, because that may be something that, our viewers face in the future, or maybe they're thinking about it. It's really important, and I want them to hear what you're doing about that.
Well, in the city of Boston, this is where I live, right behind enemy lines, where you are too, right? The city of Boston has what I would call a public access flagpole. And 5 years ago, we raised the Gadsden flag. That's the flag with the rattlesnake. And we had a nice little ceremony. We had a man referred to as the Patriot Pastor, Pastor Lear, with his replica musket, and he's dressed up in what they call the Black Robe Regiment outfit. He's 6'7". Nobody messes with a guy 6'7" walking down downtown Boston with a musket. And we had a great time. And that flag, 8x4 flag, which we still have, flew on that flagpole for about a week. But last summer, I was motivated to do this for a couple of reasons. There was an inner city pastor in Boston, Reverend Bruce Wall, that invited me to a prayer meeting in the mayor's office. Now, Mayor Walsh, no one's going to accuse him of being a Christian or a man of prayer or a godly man. He was nowhere to be found. But inside this, it was sort of not the office itself, but the little outside part of the office, the what they call ante room, ANTE room. There were Hispanics, there were blacks and whites, and there was about 30 of us, and we prayed and we gave testimonies and we prayed for our leaders, what the Bible tells us to do, prayed for our city. And then it was very uplifting, sang some hymns. And I said, there's quite a few people in this city, even though you wouldn't think so, that are devout, godly people. But why are we losing the culture here? And on the way out, there was the rainbow flag fluttering, on the City Hall Plaza. I said, we should be flying the Christian flag. Now, lots of denominations have a flag that represents the denomination, but there's a flag that was designed in the late 1890s, actually Coney Island of all places, Sunday school superintendent. And it's a very simple flag. It's a white field, and the left-hand corner, forget what you call it. I always have trouble with that term. And then there's a red cross. It's the Latin cross, and it's referred to as the Christian flag. So I called the lady that's in charge of the permitting here, and it took about a month before I got an official answer, and the answer was no, because it's a violation of the First Amendment, which I thought was pretty interesting, because here is Marty Walsh, that's supposed to be this great keeper of the Constitution, and he's okay with sanctuary cities, which is a violation of the Constitution. So Article 1, Section 8, we could ignore. We can look the other way. But the First Amendment, which has nothing to do with separation of church and state, by the way, that was not that we're in favor of a church state, not at all. It just simply said that Congress cannot make have a religion, an official religion, nor deny the free exercise thereof. And at the time the First Amendment was passed, I think 9 of the 13 states had state churches. So it was 1791. And for some reason, that didn't affect the state churches. And slowly the states just did away with, realizing this wasn't the right thing. Massachusetts did away with its state church, I think, in the 1820s without any help from the ACLU. So anyway, getting back to the flag. So we were denied. And the ironic thing is, in the email that I received from this person in charge of the permitting, in the seal, in the email, it was the city seal. And in the city seal was a Latin verse from the Bible, from 1 Kings, basically saying that may God honor us as he honored our forefathers, or may God watch over us. And then the city flag has that same logo. So there's a Bible verse on the city flag, but my goodness, that that red cross on a flag is somehow dangerous. It's threatening. Meanwhile, the city flies the transgender flag. They fly the rainbow flag, they fly the flag of communist China, and they fly the flag of communist Cuba, and so forth. So when we got the official denial, I sent out a news release, and it was sent out to mostly local media, and of course, but the talk show host Harvey Carr says, when the phone doesn't ring, that's them not calling you. I had no interest in it. But a friend of mine, Lynn Roberts, who you might know, Second Amendment sister, she said, hey, I'll get a hold of Liberty Counsel. So I went online. It's one of the organizations that defends pro bono organizations like ours. And within about 8 hours, they got a hold of me, maybe 10 hours. We liked the case, and they took it because they say it might set a precedent. And we got a lot of media coverage out of it, and I got some hostile, which you have to expect. I mean, one guy told me to do something with the flag that is physically impossible and very threatening. I just kind of laugh at these kinds of things. And anyway, we finally had a court date in early August. The federal judge that heard it was an injunction. It wasn't a hearing. An injunction hearing, I should say. It wasn't a trial. She was a Obama appointee, and she was also the lady that presided over the Whitey Bulger case. But so we knew we weren't going to get an injunction to raise the flag. So we now have it on appeal, and we're waiting for a date at the federal court in Boston, hopefully before the end of the year. And our team is willing to take it all over the Supreme Court. But we want to demonstrate that we're not supposed to be second-class citizens. Their attorney came in when they argued the case. They said, well, the city has to accept the speech or be in favor of the speech. And of course, a flag is maybe an extension of that speech. And this is a public access flagpole. And they said to her, the city said, if you want to have your ceremony and everybody can be carrying one of those flags, that's fine. It's just not going to be flying on this flagpole. And they say, we're not going to fly it. No, we're the ones that fly it. It's our flag. We put it up there until the next group comes along and flies their flag. And so it's okay to be a Chinese communist, a Cuban communist. You can belong to the homosexual community, a transgender. In fact, the city officials usually participate in those events. There they are. I'll never forget the first time I was aware of of flags flying on this, other than the U.S. flag, the city flag, the state flag, and maybe the POW MIA flag. I was leaving the Suffolk Superior Courthouse. I had just been showing up for jury duty. And I cross over the street, and there they are. It was October of 2008. They're flying the flag of Communist China. Now, Communist China, they killed about 60 million people, and the government's in power. And it was the city council, who's now a congresswoman, or will be in January, Ms. Presley, that was giving a speech praising the Chinese Communist Revolution. I says, I can't believe this. Where's the outrage here? So that's what got me involved. In fact, we hope to fly. I've actually ordered a flag, the pro-life flag. I just ordered a custom-made flag, and we're getting some other organizations that will sponsor the raising of this in January. I think it's the 22nd, to commemorate the infamous Roe versus Wade decision. So we're and if we don't, we've already won the case, but we didn't win the case that we haven't flown the flag yet. It's not over, but we've demonstrated that the city of Boston is hostile to the Christian worldview. I think that's a victory. And if we lose the case, we're going to design our own flag. It's going to be called the Camp Constitution flag, and we're going to put a red cross in there along with a picture of the Constitution. And because they've ruled, they say that even if it has Christian imagery, it's not the same. The flag of Portugal is rich with Christian imagery, and they recently flew that on City Hall Plaza, which, by the way, is a violation of state law. You're not supposed to fly foreign flags on any government property in Massachusetts unless there's a foreign dignitary, an ambassador or somebody here in official capacity.
Right.
So I think we're actually. I had an obligation to do this. I couldn't just say, oh well, we'll just kind of lick our wounds and go our own way. As a director of Camp Constitution, as someone who loves the Constitution, we had an obligation to proceed with this. And I think lots of people are going to be reading up on the First Amendment and having a clear understanding. And there are a number of cases too. For example, a preacher, a Catholic priest or a Jewish rabbi, whatever, can go on Boston city property and they can read from their scripture. As long as they're not, causing a nuisance and bothering anybody, they can be there all day, and that's free speech. It doesn't matter what the speech is, unless it's, say obscene or things of that nature. That's fine, but raising a flag on city property that's owned by us, and in fact, the city did raise a Christian flag on city property back in 1979. We didn't bring this up in the hearing. It was the Vatican flag when Pope John Paul II was here. And at that time, the Pope was not considered a head of state in the United States because we had not formally recognized the Vatican as we do now as a separate country. So we even have a picture of that. So it's going to be something, hey, wait a minute now, you used it here back in 79, And, you can walk around Boston, downtown Boston, and I love Boston, even though the politics are terrible. If you leave the State House, the front of the State House, you see this beautiful bas-relief sculpture. The 54th Regiment was the first all-black regiment that fought in the Civil War. And the man who designed the beautiful $20 gold piece, St. Gaudens, his name was St. Gaudens. He designed this. There's an angel over the soldiers. And on the back of it, on the Boston Common side, is a scripture from Psalms. If you walk down Beacon Hill, commemorating the 300th anniversary of Boston, 1930, was a part of the sermon preached by John Winthrop before they left from England to Boston. And he made biblical references to Boston being a city set on a hill. And then James Michael Curley, who was the mayor at the time, had a beautiful speech, and excerpts of that are there too. And there's a marker commemorating John Paul II. There's many other. I did a little video on it. So walk around Boston to show America's Christian history. It's unmistakable.
Right. I just want to let you know too that my executive producer Valerie, she's putting all of your links up as we're talking. So your YouTube is up there, Camp Constitution, all that is up. So everybody can find you on there. So I just want to address some comments real quick, and then. Hal is going to be on here probably for about another 6-7 minutes. If you have any questions about the Constitution, please feel free to ask. He'll be more than happy to answer them.
By the way, we're going to have a breakfast. We call it a Christmas breakfast, although it's kind of early in December 1st, at the Lakeside Christian Camp, where our week-long camp will be held next year. And you're going to be one of the speakers.
I am.
And my good friend, Reverend Stevie Kraft, who is a minister he's from New Jersey. He spent some time in Harlem, but he's back in New Jersey. He's now retired. He's in his mid-70s. You're going to love meeting him. He's just on fire. And so that's going to be on December 1st. And if you want information about that, $10, it's $10. And it's sort of a fundraiser. We're going to have a silent auction. If you have anything you want to donate to that, please bring it. And it should, be there about an hour and a half or so, and get the chance to see where the camp is, the facility, and meet some of our people.
That's fantastic. Look forward to it. Rob Bradley is just saying that you should get the Camp Constitution flag made, whether you win the case or not.
Oh, we're going to do that. Yeah. In fact, I'm asking my daughter to design it. I have nothing but talented ladies in my family, from my wife to my, she's going to design something. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm open. I designed the kit. We have camp T-shirts, and I think the things that I like. Emily, my 14-year-old said, "What about me? You're talented too." I think one of our T-shirts is George Washington, "Miss Me Yet," And for some reason, they're not very popular. So I'm going to say, forget it. I'm going to get out of this T-shirt. I had one that had Joe McCarthy, and it says, "I told you so," right? I thought that'd be a big hit, but not too many people liked it. So I'm going to get out of the T-shirt designing business and have other people do it,
So I want to say hi to Jason. He's on here. How are you doing? And Kirk Pendergrass. So he wants to know, where do we address our grievances with bad actors in government?
We address it. Well, you address it here. You go right to the person that's causing the problem. You go to the constituents. You go to the letters to the editor section. You start your own YouTube channel or your Facebook page and address it. Public forums, host an event, host a press conference. These are the kinds of things that we do, to address it. So, yeah.
100%. You gotta get loud. Everyone knows I'm loud. You gotta get loud. You gotta talk. And we get 2 ears, we get 2 eyes, but we do have a mouth, and we should use it every so often when need be. The other thing too is, we have an information table on Boston Common where we make constitutions. We have a little 10-question quiz. And that's one. You asked me a little, why do we start Camp's Constitution? Well, in addition to the fact that we were picking up the torch where it was dropped, the average person knows next to nothing about the Constitution. I had a very interesting experience. One of my girls is a student down in Lynchburg, Virginia, at Liberty University, and we had an orientation back in early June. Drove down there. And it was a long day, but there was a minor league baseball team. I said, "Hey, let me check this game out." And there was a lady passing out brochures. She was running for Congress. So somebody had a little fun with this lady. And I said, "Where do you find the job description for a member of House of Representatives?" She looked at me like, I had 2 heads. She didn't know what I was talking about. I said, "Well, where do you find the duties, the responsibilities of a member of Congress?" And she said, "Online?" She had no idea. And, we have these 10-question quizzes. We go to gun shows. And the very first question is, which amendment protects the right to keep bear arms? And everybody gets that one. But then it goes downhill from there, And we do a lot of at home. We set up tables at homeschool shows. They tend to be a better group. But the general public, I'd say that they know next to nothing about the Constitution. And that's why we elect the people we do. And there are a lot of conservatives that don't know much about the Constitution. So that's, President Trump passes an executive order putting tariffs. Is that constitutional? Mm-hmm.
People say, "Well, he's the president." No, Article 1, Section 8 says Congress. That's their power. So even a lot of conservatives don't have an understanding of the Constitution that they should have. And instead of just complaining about it, we go and do something about it.
Absolutely. It's hard to defend our Constitution when we don't have a clear grasp and understanding of what is.
That's right. Well, I was 17 and I took an oath to defend the Constitution in Boston, downtown Boston. I knew enough about it. I had a wonderful history teacher in a public school, and she loved the Constitution. So I knew it, and that oath stays with me to the day I die. It does. Just when I got out of the service, it didn't stop. It stays with me to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. They should have had an ignorant, stupid people as well. That's what they should have, because I think they're the bigger problem.
Absolutely. Well, Hal, I've got Paul and Dustin on here ready to come on. So I want to thank you so very much for being on. I want to have you on again and do, an entire hour. Maybe we can get into some specific amendments and kind of break down the Constitution a little bit.
Excellent. Okay.
So I'm going to see you at the breakfast. Valerie's been great about putting the links up to all of your stuff, but can you just give a really quick shout out about where people can find you?
Yes, campconstitution.net. That's where you can find all the information about the archive, the summer camp, the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, our Scrib page, and all the other good things. And our Amazon, where we have some of the books that we have available too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I'll see you December 1st.
All righty.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so we are about ready to bring on our next few guests. Before I do that, I want to get to the next business that we're shouting out today. This next business is run by a patriot, and he's a personal friend of mine. It's Rob Bradley, and he has Active Yards fencing solutions for life. So Active Yards has over 100 locations from coast to coast. So if you're in need of a fencing solution for your yard, you can find them at activeyards.com, or you can call 1-888-549-7350. So I'm going to go ahead and add our next guest here. All right. How you guys doing tonight?
Excellent.
Doing good. How are you?
Awesome. I am awesome. So we have our next guest we have up on the screen. We have Dustin Amundson with Restore the Intent, and Paul Engles with Constitution Study. Both work closely with the NCCPA. And I know that Restore the Intent is listed as the NCCPA's educational group that we work with. So welcome. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do, how it relates to the NCCPA, and what you do away from the NCCPA.
So I'm a state leader, state POC for the NCCPA. Restore the Intent's purpose is to basically educate people. Our heart is to get Constitution study groups going in every county in America. It's a lofty goal, but education is needed. As your last guest was talking about, is a beautiful introduction to us because our heart's in the same spot. So I was involved in the April 14th Second Amendment rallies. And I don't know, it seems to me that people don't get riled up unless, government starts going after guns. I just wanted to point out one thing real quick. Government going after guns is a symptom. It's not the problem. The problem is that Congress is filled with people who do not understand their job description. They do not understand the intent of the Constitution. If we solve that, if we fill Congress with liberty-minded people who actually understand what the founders intended, we won't have to worry about, having marches and, standing up every time they come after, one of our rights.
That's right. Absolutely. You're 100% correct. The problem is that I see is that, we tend to get very excitable about things. But then, Congress does things and then the excitement kind of goes away and then everybody's just kind of low key about it. And my biggest issue with some of the Patriot movement is not getting loud enough. We can't change what's happening in our country, and we can't change what's happening, with Congress if we don't let them know that we're watching. And I'm really tired of seeing our liberties being affected on a regular basis. And it's not just, Second Amendment. There's First Amendment issues going on. There's a whole bunch of liberties that are being infringed at this point. And we need to be just as enraged at one liberty as we do, like you said, for the Second Amendment, because if they feel they can get away with it with one, then they're going to push it a little bit, and they're going to try to get away with more.
Right. There's whenever the issue of the American flag comes up, one thing that really irks me, and I hope I don't, step on any toes by saying this, but I've noticed there's a bunch of people that, if you mess with the flag at all, if you don't stand for the anthem, people are up in arms, just like the, Second Amendment. I think what people fail to realize is that the flag represents something. It represents our republic, and people will get all up in arms when people disrespect the flag, and yet our republic is being systematically destroyed. And I don't see that same fury from people. And I should.
We should.
I think both of you made a very interesting point, is that very often people react to what happens via emotion. How does it make them feel? If you're a gun person, you're very excited about Second Amendment. If you fought under the flag, or you really feel strongly about the flag, you get excited about that. But as your previous guest mentioned, actual knowledge of the Constitution is extremely rare in this nation. So when someone gets excited about something, they don't have the basis to say, well, why is this a right? Where is it protected? And what can I do to help defend that? They have to be engaged. I would say not just loud, but they have to be loud and purposeful and have a standard by it. Otherwise, it's just whoever's the loudest voice wins. And that's really where what the Constitution study focuses on, and that is helping educate everyday Americans about the Constitution, that it's not that hard to read, it's not that hard to understand. With a little bit of effort and a little bit of help, everybody can understand what are the rights protected by the First Amendment. And ask questions like, is flag burning a protected right or not? Is kneeling for the flag or kneeling for the national anthem a protected right or not in those situations? And those are the types of discussions we like to have up at the Constitution Study.
So there's a question up here right now by Kirk, and I'm going to give it to you guys and let you answer. So Kirk wants to know, what are our rights? Where do they come from in law? And is it written, and how to effectively defend them?
Wow, that's a question I could easily take about half an hour to answer. I'll give you the short version. A right is defined as a privilege or immunity you have that you can exercise as a person, as a human being. Now, there are different types of rights. The Declaration of Independence refers to unalienable rights, rights that you have just for being alive, and they cannot be taken away. They can be infringed, they can be restricted, but they literally cannot be taken away from you. You go to a nation that doesn't have freedom of speech. You go to Canada, where maybe your right to defend yourself is restricted. That right doesn't disappear. The government just isn't recognizing it. Now, you also have things like alienable rights, rights that involve, for example, the right to vote. The government gave you the right to vote. The government can take away or set the standards for the right to vote. Now, when it comes to where do you find them, where are they enacted? They're actually enacted through a lot of legislation, but the core values, the core rights that most Americans defended exist in the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. What's called the Bill of Rights. For that very reason, it lists the rights that our founders, literally several of the first states said, we won't sign this Constitution unless you give us a list of rights that the government cannot touch, period, end of story. But even going through the rest of the Constitution, you can find where rights are protected. For example, when the president or a judge or any officer in the federal system takes an oath of office, the Constitution says they either take an oath or affirm. So you have an oath or affirmation. The reason is a lot of religious organizations don't allow their adherents to swear oaths. So the Constitution recognizes and protects the right to freely exercise their religion by not forcing someone to swear an oath. And there's lots of those things spread out through the Constitution. But if you want to know what most of them are, read the Bill of Rights. There's actually, I have a book up on Amazon where we go through all 10 amendments, what rights are enumerated there, and what they mean and how they should be applied and what we can do to help protect them.
That's a fantastic answer. You condensed that quite well.
Thank you.
So let's get into restore the intent. So this is being shared to a lot of NCCPA pages in all the states, as well as the main group. So I want the NCCPA point of contacts, as well as our members, to understand exactly what restore the intent does with the NCCPA.
So Restore the Intent is one of the groups within the NCCPA, affiliated groups. whose mission is to carry out the education aspect of NCCPA. I mean, NCCPA is involved in, education, a political branch whom I want to give a shout out to CGM soon. CHIND, which is search and rescue, disaster relief. So there's different components to NCCPA. One of them is education. Restore the Intent is under the education branch, and our mission is just to educate people. I hope I'm answering that correctly, and
Yes, there's I'm also a point of contact for Massachusetts, but I'm also one of the national officers for public relations. So there are multiple aspects to the NCCPA, events, politics, education, and disaster relief. So the Restore the Intent is under the educational aspect of the NCCPA, and you can find the all of those, the politics, the education, the disaster relief and events under your unit section in your group page. So when you click on that, you will actually, under education, you will find Restore the Intent. So just give them an idea of what Restore the Intent is and what you do.
So Restore the Intent, our purpose is to establish Constitution study groups in every county in America. We don't necessarily teach. We use other people's materials, like Constitution study. Did we lose Paul?
Paul's on. He's there.
Okay. Yeah, a little portion of the screen went black for me. But we use materials like Constitution study. Chris Ann Hall, we worked out a deal with Chris Ann Hall to use her Liberty First University materials at a discounted price. We're getting a county rate. So I personally use her materials along with other materials in my Constitution study group in my county. And it is $30 a month for her materials, but I can use it unlimitedly and gather as many people as I can in the county. Very good material, very in-depth, and she is extremely articulate, and she knows what she's talking about. So when it's not in use, you can shut it off, so you're not paying when you're not actually having a class. We're working out a deal with the Institute on the Constitution as well, and that's going to be the $30 a month. Restore the Intent does not make any money. Our purpose is just to help people start study groups in their county, and then we connect people that are looking for a study group to those who are actually hosting them. So we also have a founding documents page where we're listing all the founding documents, and it's going to go back to Plato's Republic, and it's going to be in order of date written, so a person can kind of follow that timeline. And if they want to know where rights come from, they can, stop at the John Locke section and read away.
Chris Ann Hall is pretty fantastic, and I think that if you watching aren't familiar with her program and what she does, we talk so often about understanding and learning the Constitution, and she really breaks it down. And it's up to us as patriots to take control over educating others on the Constitution, because as we see, it's so very important that we understand what is actually in the Constitution, but not only the words, but what the actual intent is. So it's a little bit different. So these videos that that Dustin's talking about, you can actually have a Constitution party. You can have a whole bunch of people over to your house, maybe drink some wine and relax and learn the Constitution. So that's why, this is so very important. It's not like like you're in a class. It's very relaxed. It's in somebody's home. It's in a bunch of friends getting together and learning the Constitution. And it's very important. And I think that more people need to get involved with that and start learning. So
we actually hold ours in a in a church. That's our venue right now. If it gets bigger, we're going to move to a different venue. But absolutely, if people want to hold them in their house, on their couch, more than welcome. All you need is a online access, hook a laptop up to the computer or a smart TV, and you go to Liberty First University, log in, and, I think Chris Ann Hall adds a class per month on a different subject, and there's currently 20 to 25. Now you can find her some materials on YouTube as well, but they're more general, talks that she travels around the country and talks to legislatures and, sheriff's departments and all sorts of different groups. You can find those on YouTube, and they're very informative, but they're kind of at the surface level. So her Liberty First University materials go a lot deeper.
She's truly fantastic. She knows her stuff. So Paul, let's talk about Constitution study. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Constitution study actually started as a study. I had been learning and reading about the Constitution for several years, and I encountered this report. It was the 2013 edition of what's called the State of the First Amendment. And the part that got me was, of the 1,000 people they surveyed, 36% could not name a single freedom protected by the First Amendment. And that number floored me. And at the time, I happened to be driving home from a Bible study, and the thought hit me, well, if we can study the Bible in small groups, why can't we study the Constitution that way? So I started one. Worked with a friend of mine back when I lived in upstate New York. We had this study. It was awesome. It was great. We spent 9 months every other week reading, studying, discussing, debating. I had to cut the sessions off at an hour and a half because nobody would leave. And then after 9 months, and after we'd gone through the entire Constitution once, I ended up moving. I moved to Middle Tennessee and haven't found a group that was quite as interested. So I started the organization, the Constitution Study. It's available online. I have articles. I work on books and online classes. There's a podcast, and it's all about helping us educate ourselves about what the Constitution says based on the actual words on the document, of the people that wrote it, of the people that were actually there, and trying to digest it and apply it to what's happening today. So, your previous guest talked about an executive order, and we talk about executive orders and what is justifiable and what is not justifiable in these different executive orders. Your previous guest talked about I frequently go through and look at some of the opinions and break them down constitutionally, because it's one thing to educate ourselves. I really want people to be able to educate others. Because as John Jay said, it's not simply that we read and study the Constitution, but that we teach the rising generation to be free. And the last several generations have not been taught. What we're trying to do here is give the material so that this generation can teach the next generation, so that hopefully they will take the mess that we've made and begin to claw back some of the rights that we have given up through our inattentiveness.
So let me ask you both, since you're out in the public discussing the Constitution, give me two very large misconceptions in regard to the Constitution that you find frequently when talking to people about it.
Well, I'll tell you, there are two. I actually have three that I use, but I'll pick two. The first one is, we do not have three co-equal branches of government. We have three branches, but they are in no way equal. And a simple reading of the first three articles of the Constitution shows the vast majority resides in Congress, the representatives of the people and the representatives of the states. So that is a phrase that just drives me nuts. The other one, which comes up about every 4 years, the people do not vote for president. The states do. If you look at your ballot, it says you're voting for electors for president and vice president. And that this whole debate about, well, who won the popular election? There is no popular election for president. It doesn't exist. It's a made-up term for people to whine and complain and for the media to have something to talk about. And there's actually a movement to get states to bind their electors based on the national popular vote. It's called the National Popular Vote Movement, which basically says, if let's say you're in Georgia, and Georgia votes for candidate A. Don't care who candidate A is, but candidate B wins more votes throughout the rest of the country. If Georgia adopts a national popular vote that basically says we're going to ignore what Georgia says, we're going to assign our electors to whoever won the national popular vote, which to me is not only foolish but dangerous. It literally destroys. It's another attempt to destroy the republic by turning it into some form of democracy. And our founders were terrified of the idea of democracy because, in their words, they never end well.
Elaborate for me a little bit, just to explain, because this is a debate that I get into with a lot of people all the time. People not understanding why President Trump hasn't done certain things. So explain a little bit, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about the executive branch. So can you condense that a little bit and just kind of explain the conditions of the executive branch and exactly what power the president has in regard to Congress?
Right. So there are really, Article 2 establishes the presidency, which is the executive branch. All the powers vested actually in the president. And there are really about 5 powers that are given to the president. Now, the one we often think of is commander-in-chief. That makes sense. He has the power to appoint, judges and ambassadors and other federal offices. He has the power to make treaties. He has the power to issue pardons, and he has the power to accept. To basically accept foreign dignitaries, to host foreign dignitaries. Now, it's interesting, of those 5, 3 of them require Congress. See, while the president is the commander-in-chief of the military, it's Congress that sets the rules for the military. The president can't do just whatever he feels like. He is a general with orders. His orders come from Congress. And then the other 2, the ability to appoint and the ability to make treaties, both require the advice and consent of the Senate, which is part of Congress. Now, that's interesting for a couple of reasons. One is, with our bicameral system, the House of Representatives is designed to represent the people of the United States, and the Senate is supposed to represent the states themselves. In fact, senators were originally appointed by the state legislatures. So if you think of it that way, that means the president, if he's going to appoint a judge or he's going to nominate a new attorney general, we just went through the Kavanaugh hearings. The process we use of the president nominates and the Senate approves, it's not the way it's designed. It's not the way it's set up. They're supposed to work on it together. The president, with the advice and consent of the Senate, makes these positions. So the president really, most of his powers are functionary. He's a mouthpiece for the Senate, for the states. He's there to be the primary contact for negotiating treaties, the primary contact for interacting with foreign nations. But it's Congress that sets foreign policy. It's Congress that establishes the rules for the military. It's Congress that determines whether or not we will sign on to a treaty. His powers are actually very limited. The problem is, since most people don't realize that, they keep asking the president to do things like, well, we want him to set a budget and spend money and pass a law. And if he doesn't he can't get Congress, he has a pen and a phone. And we invest all this power into making a president a king. Mm-hmm. And nobody thinks about that. He doesn't have those. And then we wonder why a position which is not designed to have a lot of actual power falls apart when you put a lot of power there.
It's very true. I think it's important that people understand that. There seems to be a lot of frustration and infighting between a lot of people, whether it's, between partisan or bipartisan, in regards to the power of the executive branch. I know that Obama joked about Trump having a magic wand creating lower unemployment, but in reality, the president does not have, a magic wand. Everything has to be approved. And I hope that answers some questions. I know a lot of people, I get in debates with that all the time. So I want to get to some comments here. Let's see. All right. So Terry Chastain says the commander-in-chief can obligate us to a rapid response for 60-day and up to 90-day to fall back. So he's military, he's Army. So he's speaking from a military perspective. So Sherry says people don't realize that. She's talking about what you had said. And now they're turning their back on him because of lack of knowledge. And I think that may be part of it too, just a lack of knowledge of understanding, what exactly President Trump can do. I know we'd like to see a lot more happen, whether it's in Congress or, the Department of Justice. I know there's a lot of people that we feel are kind of running around and probably need to be held accountable for their actions. So maybe that's a good question for you to answer while you're on here. Can you explain that process? So let's use Hillary Clinton, for instance. Who is responsible for bringing charges? And I know the answer to this, but I think people are tired of hearing me talk. Who's responsible for bringing charges against someone like Hillary Clinton? And what has to happen in order for that to happen? And who do we blame if it doesn't happen? So
I want to make one comment first, and I'll answer that question. You're absolutely right. I think it was Terry about the ability to move. It's referred to as the War Powers Act. It's actually power that Congress gave to the president. The Congress said the president can engage in troops if there's an imminent threat, and they put all sorts of reasons and rules around that, and Congress can change it. So that's so Congress is still in charge of that, even though they've delegated. They've told the president, the commander in chief, what situations he can act without waiting for Congress. The process you're referring to as far as charges against any federal official, any judge, anybody in the executive branch is referred to as impeachment. And the process is fairly simple, although it's rarely used nowadays. The House of Representatives, basically someone submits a bill proposing the impeachment of an officer or a judge of the United States, the federal government. If that passes, that person is impeached. So let's remember Bill Clinton. He was impeached. Congress, in effect, issued an indictment against the president. Said, you're doing something wrong. You violated something. Here are the charges. And they take the impeachment and it gets sent to the Senate. The Senate then tries the impeachment. There's an actual trial where the senators are basically the jury. So the House puts up, goes before them and gives their case. The person being impeached, who's been impeached, puts up their defense, and then the Senate decides by a 2/3 majority, I believe it is, whether or not the person is guilty or not. Now, what's interesting is impeachment has very limited punishments. When someone is convicted of an impeachment, basically they are removed from office and they are disqualified from ever holding an office in the federal government again, what's referred to as an office of trust in the United States. So if Hillary Clinton were impeached, or as they talk about it, if they impeached President Trump or Justice Kavanaugh, it's the same process. The House comes out, they vote to say, yes, we think this person is wrong, we want this person tried. That's called impeachment. They think it's tried by the Senate. If they're convicted, the only punishment is they're removed from office and forever disqualified from serving in the federal government.
Excellent. Excellent. That was an excellent explanation. So I want to address, Kirk has a lot of comments here, so I want to address just a couple of them. The first one, he says, considering we are at war, the president is the commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy. I think there's a big difference between conflicts that are going on and actual war. So I don't think we're actually declaring war on anyone at this particular point in time.
Legally, we are not at war. Legally, we have not been at war since 1945.
So he also comments, we've been under martial law since 1871. Can you address that one for me?
We've been under martial law. I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to.
Hey, Kurt, can you elaborate just a little bit on that comment about being under martial law since 1871? Martial law is, there's a lot of people that call for martial law all the time. I see on the internet. When martial law is enacted, we lose our constitutional rights. The military comes in under martial law, and there is no due process at that point. Our country doesn't function the same way that it does without martial law. So to be under martial law, we would definitely feel the pinch on that one. So if you want to elaborate on that, Kurt, feel free to do that.
The Constitution goes out the window. We are basically a banana republic, and the military is in charge.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There's curfews and that are in effect, and the military's in charge, hands down. So martial law is not something that we should be calling for or that we want. All right. So Jan, she says, how do we the people stop all the upcoming investigations?
Well, it kind of follows on, I forgot you'd asked, what do we do? Our primary focus as citizens of the United States are our representatives. If there's a problem in government, our representatives are the people that are supposed to represent us. Now, part of the problem is we don't think of them that way. And in fact, in many ways, we think of them as these high on a hill, wonderful people they're just being nice to the poor little serfs that exist out here in flyover country. But what we really need to do is go to our representatives and say, listen, you swore an oath. You are required by the Constitution to swear an oath that you will support the Constitution. If what you're doing is unconstitutional, you are violating your oath. If you're violating your oath, not only why should I vote for you, why should I not do everything I can to get you thrown out? And that's the problem. See, we've spent decades teaching politicians that the way to get reelected is to promise us stuff. Forget the Constitution, forget the rule of law, forget anything else. If you promise Americans stuff, they'll vote for you. And as long as we keep training them that, they're like a dog, not to be an insult, but if if the dog bites the mailman and you give them a biscuit, and every time the mailman shows up, they're going to bite the mailman because they're expecting a biscuit. If, on the other hand, they bite the mailman, you swat them with a newspaper and send them to their kennel, they're pretty much going to figure out maybe I'm not supposed to bite the postman. We don't do that. We tell congressmen, we don't care what you do. It's your private life. We don't care. Yeah, you did this and that, but you promised to give us stuff, so we'll vote for you anyway. It really comes down to an issue that George Washington and several of our founding fathers worried about, and that is party, factions. This idea that politics is now a team sport, and I really don't care how bad my guy is because he has the right letter after his name, and so I'm going to vote for him. And I really don't care about the Constitution. Since most people don't know about the Constitution, they don't care about the Constitution. They don't know we have to hold our representatives accountable because they are us. They represent us. And if Congress has roughly between an 11 and 15% approval rating, that means the approval rating of Americans, what we put forward to people to see of us, is really pretty bad. Mm-hmm. Yet we don't think about that when we head to the booth and say, why does my representative only not know my face? Why does he not do what the Constitution says? Because I don't hold him accountable. And sure, I'm only one person, but if I educate 10 people and they educate 10 people and they educate 10 people, pretty soon we're starting to get some influence on these congressmen that are, maybe we actually want to pay attention to the Constitution. Maybe doing the constitutional thing will get me reelected rather than get me booted out.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that about voting for people that represent us and represent, in defense of the Constitution, rather than just by voting for somebody because they're Republicans. Massachusetts is a perfect example of, that Charlie Baker is only Republican in name, but he's very much, not a Republican, doesn't stand for, he sides with the Democratic Party. And so, you have to be careful when you go to the voting booths. And then there's a lot of discourse between people you voted for an independent. If you hadn't voted for that independent, the Republican might have won in this state. And it really boils down to choosing someone who represents you and represents your ideals and how you want to see that represented in Congress. That's what it boils down to. And just picking the right person. And, there's a lot of people that are calling themselves constitutional conservatives and, constitutionalist. And it's really important to learn the Constitution first before you give yourself that title, and understand what congressmen are going to go to Congress and then embody that. So that's also very, very important. Just because he's a Republican doesn't mean that he's not going to vote to try and take away your Second Amendment rights or limit freedom of speech or, look at what happened with Judge Kavanaugh with due process. I mean, it's so very frustrating right now with everything that's happening. But Kirk, I just want to tell you, I respect you, my friend. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to get into all of the comments because we've already been on for an hour. But I'm going to contact you and invite you to come on the show with me, and we can talk about it and bring all of your knowledge to the table and have a really good discussion, Kirk. So I look forward to doing that. So, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I wish I had another hour to spend with you guys. It's been awesome. I want to invite you back so you can be on again so we can educate a little bit more in certain things. I think there's a lot of comments on here. I think a lot of people are engaged. And I think having discussions about the Constitution and explaining some things and get people engaged and the buy-in to learn more about the Constitution is so very important, especially when we're looking at the direction that our country's headed. So I just want to give both of you the floor really quick for a closing. If there's any place that, you want to tell people to go to find you or, any advice you want to give.
I guess I'll start with a shameless plug. constitutionstudy.com is the website. As I said, I have articles and podcast episodes. Excellent. There's an Ask a Question page. You type in a question. I love answering those questions. And many of the times they turn into website articles or podcast episodes. So you can always find more information there. If you want to learn more, I've got several small books up on Amazon. You go to amazon.com/author/Paul Engel, Paulengel. You can see some of the stuff that I've worked on. There is more to come. I hopefully early next year will release the Constitution Study book, which will cover absolutely everything from the Declaration of Independence to Amendment 27.
Dustin, do you want to give a closing?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I thought I was like in the green room or something. I cannot see or hear Paul. So I'm kind of out of the entire conversation. I did message you, but you were busy in conversation. And I didn't want to interrupt him, but his screen went black, and that's why I thought that he left. And I have no sound whatsoever. So I'm going to go back and listen, and hopefully I can hear it, later on after the fact. But so, yeah, I wish you were nodding intently, and it looked like a very interesting conversation, and I would have loved to have been part of it. But so the website for Restore the Intent is restoretheintent.com. You can go under Find a Study Group. And if there's one near you, I'll try hooking you up with it. If you would like to host one, click on that link and fill it out, and I will do my best to find a program that you're comfortable with. I know I mentioned Chris Ann Hall and Institute on the Constitution, which both have a monthly fee. There are free options as well. We can work with Constitution Study. Paul puts out a lot of content, and we have that, all the founding documents on Restore the Intent's website. And if you don't want to spend money on it, that's fine. What a person can do is just go down and read the founding documents, read through the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, and read on down and discuss them. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them. Paul's very knowledgeable. I have access to a lot of expert people, and I can find the answers if I don't know them. So all I'm here to do is assist people in starting Constitution study groups in their county. That's all I really care about, and I'll do whatever it takes for you to start one and educate the people around you. Not only that, I would like to mention CGM, since we were talking about getting people involved. It's Constitutional Grassroots Movement. I'm an executive member there. What we do is we vet candidates and find out whether or not they understand and will adhere to the Constitution and its principles. It's a very thorough vetting process that we use. And I mean, when we choose to endorse a candidate, that candidate is outstanding and constitutionally knowledgeable, and we need to get people like that into office, and that's the bottom line. We have years until the next cycle. That's plenty of time to get involved, educating people around you in your county, educating yourself, getting involved with groups, organizations like Constitutional Grassroots Movement. Right now, Constitutional Grassroots Movement is trying to organize at the local and state level. We need to have boots on the ground, looking for or creating constitutional candidates and running for those local offices, running for school board, running for sheriff especially. If I would have been if I would have answered what people are most surprised about when we have a conversation with them, it's basically the power flow that I can point to. It seems to just astound people because they're used to a national down way of thinking, when in reality, all power comes from people. And the person we elect that's closest to us, which is charged with the duty of protecting our rights, interposing between us and state government, us and federal government, is a sheriff. So, I mean, if we can get constitutional sheriffs in our counties that are willing to stand up and say no to the state or federal government, we're not going to enforce that in our county, that's a big layer of protection. So that's what we want, is people being active in their states and either finding good people to run for office, constitutional people, or creating them, or becoming knowledgeable and running themselves, So Constitutional Grassroots Movement on Facebook, type in Constitutional Grassroots Movement, you'll find it, or go to www.constitutionalgrassrootsmovement, I believe it's .org.
Yeah,
thank you very much for having us on.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's very, what CGM is doing is so very important. When a lot of people think about elections and supporting officials, they think about large branches, the House of Representatives, the Senate, the President of the United States. And they forget about very important, like you said, the sheriff, very important elective officials, even on a county level, that can affect our lives. There's also, people running for school boards. I mean, there's very important offices that people should be voting for that affect us on a regular basis. But CGM is in all 50 states, and it really helps helps to explain candidates and endorses candidates, but also breaks it down to a county level as well. And again, you guys should check it out. I'm going to put the link up there as soon as we get done for CGM. Very, very important. And CGM, Constitutional Grassroots Movement, is also the political side to the NCCPA. So very, very important. So I invite everyone that's watching to check them out as well. So you go to their Facebook page, and again, they are in all 50 states and broken down. So they have state leaders and leaders within that as well to really, really help you out. So, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for coming in. Dustin, I'm so sorry that I miscommunicated with you that you were on as well. I'm doing another show like this one next Tuesday. I know we had talked about, tonight being better for you, but I do have one slot open that I can hold for you if you want to come back on next Tuesday and talk a little bit more about what you weren't able to get out. I'm not really sure what happened with that. So, hearing me talk and with a lot of pauses, it was probably very boring on your end. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, definitely we'll talk and we'll see if we can bring you back on. So I want to say thank you to both of you. It was so very informative. I enjoyed having both of you on, and let's do it again soon. I think it's important.
Yes, thank you very much.
My pleasure. You guys have a great night.
You too.
All right. I think that was pretty fantastic. I think the more that we, dive into the Constitution and the more that we understand the Constitution and the intent, the better off we're going to be, especially protecting the Constitution. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there, whether it's just on Facebook or Twitter or just physical conversations people are having. There's a lot of misinformation being spread about the Constitution and what the intent is. And we can't defend something that we don't understand. So very important. If you're not a member of the NCCPA, I would encourage everyone to join. And they do a lot of fantastic things. And, a big focus is education and learning the Constitution. So I would recommend that everybody does that. So before I go, one more plug for business. I want to mention my brother, Big Will. Everybody knows Will at Train for Life in Berwick, Massachusetts. So he can get you strong, trained, and ready for anything. They're committed to help society attain and maintain their goals of fitness through healthy eating and regular exercise. I don't know if y'all see Will's videos, but he is a beast. And his competitions literally leaves me sitting on the edge of the couch. The stuff that man can pick up and carry for long distances is just absolutely amazing. He did this one where he was throwing barrels just like he was just tossing an apple. So I told him that he could probably pick most of us up and throw us as well. So check them out. So it is Train for Life New England on Facebook, and he's a sponsored athlete at NutriShop in Finchburg. So that's all I have time for tonight. Join us next week. We'll be broadcasting on Tuesday instead of Thursday because I will be out of town. I'm traveling, and on Tuesday, the show is going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have Nicole from Liberty Den University. She is doing amazing things. She's my sister in Daughters of Liberty, and she's really reaching out to a lot of people, college age, and really trying to break that barrier with the liberal indoctrination, bringing some other aspects. She's on fire. She's fantastic. So she's going to be on. And Rusty McConnell from American Patriots Vanguard is also going to be on, as well as Clint Bishop. So we will see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. So I'm going to see if Dustin can come on. I do have another spot on the show, even if Dustin can't come on. So if you want to be on, let me know. I can get you in. So as always, God bless America. God bless our soldiers and vets. God bless you, and Patriot on, my friends. Until next time.